Good morning and welcome to Friday. And I like Fridays because, for a lot of reasons. One reason, Friday morning I meet with our staff men, and that's always an encouragement. And I love these, especially I got our staff split. We've got three older guys, let's just say, leave it at that, and three younger guys. And I love the youth, love young men that are straight and love their wives, love their children, love their God, love the life of serving the Lord. And then I like Fridays because I typically will take my wife out for Friday, and we'll go anywhere from lunch in Costco to San Diego for a walk along the water and dinner, and we might go to Cheesecake Factory or some barbecue sandwich place, and I like best thing to do is spend time with my wife. And I just want to encourage you, if you've got your spouse, stay loving them, and don't let those seeds of bitterness creep in. And it's not a marriage session today, but I'll tell you, there's a lot to be said. I'm going to be in Psalm chapter 16 if you want to find it in a minute or two, but stay warm, stay affectionate, stay kind. Don't let bad thinking get in, and do your best to be easy to get along with. Sometimes, especially as the years pass, we can get a little grumpy. Well, stop it. Remember Bob Newhart? Stop it, and just quit being a grump. You don't have to be a grump. You can be nice, and you don't have to be a know-it-all, and you don't have to always get your way. Most of the things in life that people differ on, they're inconsequential. And let your spouse have their way, but don't let it always be that way. It needs to go back and forth some. But Friday also is a stepping stone. Saturday is our biggest crowd going out on the streets soul winning. That used to be, trends or whatever you want to call it, lifestyles, things differ. Used to be Thursday nights. We had the majority of our people going out soul winning on Thursdays, and then just bus workers and a few folks going on Saturdays. Well, now we have a few folks going on Thursdays and a lot of people going on Saturday. And, whatever works with job change. Right now, people work a lot of hours. Some of our best people, they're working 6 days a week, and they're hardly able to do anything but work and get to church and look after their family a little bit. But I'm grateful for it. I love Saturdays because of soul winning. And then, of course, it's Saturday night. We have our men's prayer meeting at 7, and then Sunday we have church for the day. And what a great day on Sunday. Now, I want to encourage you, if you would be able to come and join us tonight. We have our bus rally, and it's just going to be let's just make sure we love the bus ministry kind of a night. And there'll be some fun, contests, singing. It'll just be it's going to kind of be modeled after what would go on a bus if you were riding a bus to and from church as a child or as a worker. And we want to encourage you. Now, some of you might never work on a bus because of any number of reasons, but you could pray for the bus. And if you know what goes on a bus, you'll pray better. And maybe God would move you to do something financially. I remember when Ray and Audrey Fossey got saved years and years ago. Just something clicked with our bus ministry. Ray he never said much about his past. He was World War II Tank Corps. He was a sheriff, and he said he was a bounty hunter for a while, and but not a lot about his early 50, 60 years. And he had to be 60 or older when we met, when he got saved. And he said he went to Amy Simple McPherson's church when he was a little child. He said, I remember her saying, just put paper in the offering today. My head hurts, and the coin jingling hurts my head. And he just laughed at the silliness of people in the ministry, and I laughed with him. But I don't know a lot about his background, but when he saw what our buses were doing, the people picking up people who were poor, people that were maybe neglected by a lot of churches, Ray just fell in love with the idea of people who would go out on Saturday and visit people, find out who wants to come, and then go back on Sunday and pick them up, get them to church, get them to Sunday school classes, and then after church, get them home, and realizing the bus workers' morning might start at 6:30, heading, getting on the bus, getting things together, and might not get off that bus till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And it's a long day. Those bus workers are great. Well, Ray never worked on a bus in that sense, but he did start buying our buses, and he'd find the oldest bus we had, and he'd go on a search at bus auctions, and he'd buy a new bus, and one by one until every bus we had we had 8 or 10 buses out in the parking lot that he bought every one of them, and that was just he was older, and he said I just owe God a lot, and I intend on paying him back everything I can, and it was great. He and Audrey, just what a great couple. So anyway, tonight, if you can come, it'd be great. Now, if you can't get there, please pray. The bus ministry is, in our culture, it's the greatest outreach ministry to the poor and to children. It just is. And there's a lot of churches, they're not equipped to, if a bunch of kids just walked in on their own, they're not equipped. And we have Sunday school teachers and nurseries and different things set up, and parents, maybe parents that don't have a car, and just all kinds of things like that. That bus ministry is so great. So I hope you'll pray. And 7 o'clock, it'll be a fun evening. It won't be a dreary night at all. It'll be a fun evening. I'd love to have you come. I want to mention the last Saturday I was able to attend and take part in my pastor's funeral. And my pastor, Blue, up in Northern California, Pastor Blue had spent his life serving the Lord. He was I'll just give you a quick summary. He's a youth pastor in Van Nuys for 11 years, right out of, he was in the Navy, and then he was in Bible college, but 11 years as a youth pastor. And by the time he left, he had, I guess, near 1,000 or somewhere around 1,000 young people. And there were no real youth pastors in the 50s. That's kind of a new concept. But his ministry was youth, young adults. And so from college age down to teenagers. And he had Bible clubs in all the different schools and on the campuses of the colleges. And he made a huge, huge impact. So 11 years there. And then he went north to Redding, California, and started North Valley Baptist Church in Redding. There's another North Valley Baptist in Santa Clara that we know well, Pastor Jack Treber. This is another 3.5, 4 hours north, 4-hour drive north of Santa Clara, right on Interstate 5. And Pastor Blue stayed there 39 years. So he just lived his life for God, retired, and then he kept living his life. And this is just a little thing they handed out, got some pictures of him, and building and radio station, a small Bible institute, later turned into a Bible college, a rescue mission, and a camp, and all kinds of ministries, reaching out, helping people. And I just love what God did, and all the way up through his life. I remember the one class he taught when I was in college there. I went to 3 different colleges before I got a diploma. It took me 7 years in 3 colleges to find one that would give me a piece of paper or kick me out, one or the other. But he taught personal evangelism. He'd come in on Friday. It was a 2-hour class. I want to say 8 to 10, could have been 9 to 11. I don't know. It's been a long time ago. That was around 77. He'd walk into class, and he'd tell us people he'd led to Christ that week. And then he'd say, "What did you do for the Lord this week?" And kind of put the pressure on us. And, and he's telling us he's in the drive-through at the McDonald's or sandwich place, whatever, and there's no one behind him. So he just gets talking to the gal at the window, and pretty soon she's bowing her head, trusting Christ. And that's the kind of guy he was. And he was just a great guy. Well, all his life, he was a good soul winner, up into his 90s. And he and I'd talk regularly, and it was a rare time that he didn't reflect on someone who'd gotten saved. And I'm going to say just in the last few months, and I'm terrible with details, but in the last few months, he'd led someone to Christ that he'd known for 40 years or 50 years, I forget. And the guy never had showed any interest in the gospel. And just a couple months before Pastor Blue went to heaven, he got to lead this man to Christ. And what a great thing. So just blessings to know that we can keep serving God. Now, Psalm 16, if you would look there with me, couple of verses here. The chapter's just a wonderful short chapter, 11 verses. But I want you to notice in verse 6, "The lines are fallen to me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. Now, there's a lot in here. Verse 11 is great. Thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy. There's not fullness of joy in money, and there's not fullness of joy in possessions. There's fullness of joy in the presence of God. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. This old stupid world thinks that fame and fortune will get them happiness. And no way. You get near to God, you'll find pleasures that'll last forever. But my verse here this morning, and just the end of the week here, I want to mention, and again, our morning moments are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now, and I probably threw some of you off. I know some people who listen every day on the way to work, and so you figure out a way to do it. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursdays we have podcasts. If you can sort through all the trash on the internet to the Faith Baptist podcasts, and I do have those going. There's new ones every Tuesday and Thursday. But anyway, I apologize if that throws something in a wrench into your day, but I assure you it has to do with my plate, my cup runneth over, we'll just say that. But in verse 6, the lines are fallen to me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. Now, David has just said, now, David had a good home. Jesse was his father, and he was the youngest, had older brothers, and the brothers were at war. David's watching the sheep, and that's when Dad needs someone to bring some food and drink to the troops. And David goes up, sees Goliath, and as a young man kills Goliath. It's David who joins Saul's first to play for Saul, to play in his during his bad days, to encourage him. A lot of lessons there. And then Saul hires him basically to work for him. And pretty soon he's leading his army, and then pretty soon Saul's threatened by him and trying to kill David. And David's running around the country just trying to do his best to survive without having to fight his own king. And he had some battles and great victories, wonderful, wonderful victories. And great blessings came along. And of course, he was the father of Solomon, the man with more understanding and great wisdom. And David was the man after God's own heart. And David says, I just want to make it clear that the lines, the path that God laid out for me, they're pleasant. The lines are fallen to me in pleasant places. And yes, there's some battles. Yes, there's some heartache. He had some difficulty with his children. But his paths were paths of pleasantness. And there were some battles in his country. But his paths were paths of pleasantness. And I just want you to focus on this thought. The lines are fallen to me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. Think about what it is that got you where you are. And I could say that in my childhood, only a couple times I remember going to church. Might have been more than that, but I don't really remember much about going to church. But I remember honesty. I remember hard work. I remember do what you're told. I remember respect your authorities. I remembered enjoy your family. My parents, on occasion, I guess they must have gone with friends to do something social, but weekends we were home together. And I learned the importance or the value of a good family. And though we didn't have Bible reading each day and singing of hymns and never sat in church with my whole family until I was married, but I had a home that taught me so much about so many things, so many good things. And so the lines are fallen to me in pleasant places. God was ordering my steps. And I had a coach that was not a Christian and never heard a word of anything Christian out of his mouth. And yet he invested in me, and he went out of his way. He just really, as a youth, I could not appreciate his sacrifice. And I've mentioned this before, I don't know where, so I don't know if you've heard it or not, but I'm a junior year, I can't tell you exactly when, I'm going to say the summer before my senior year, but somewhere toward the end of high school, this high school coach took an interest in me enough, and I was getting invitations to play basketball at some colleges, and we were talking about this one and that one, and so he drove me to Oregon State, which was, I don't know how far. We were a couple of hours. We were probably 3 or 4 hours to the Oregon border. I'm not sure. We were 2 hours to a freeway going straight east. We were up in the mountains, and then however far north and into Oregon. And I went there for a basketball training kind of a thing and to be a part of it. And I walked on there as still a junior in high school with Pac-8, the Pacific 8 in those days, Pac-8, one of the top teams in the nation. And I walk on that court, and I was so out of place. Just because you're good, you could be a big fish in a little pond and be a very small fish when you get into the ocean. And I walked on that court, and it took me about 60 seconds to realize I am way out of my league. But I stayed there and played and spent the week. The coach tried to get me to agree to come, and I just said, this is so out of my. He said, no, you'll be fine. And I said, yeah, I'll be fine carrying water for the guys who can play. And then my coach drove me clear to Washington, and again, I'm thinking now about the Oregon State. I can't even remember if the coach drove us or he got some parents to drive us, but he arranged it and got me there. Then he personally drove me to Washington to a smaller school, a AAA school, not a 4A, the bigger school, smaller school, smaller college. And I remember just he and I drove 700 miles north. And I stayed in one of a fraternity house, and I was there 3 or 4 days playing ball with the team, and I felt like I could fit there. And after I was there, however long I was there, and this is a long time ago, but we drove all the way back, and I hope I thanked him. I'm thinking now, that guy spent a lot of time on me, and I don't know if he drove back home 700 miles and drove 700 miles to get me, or if he stayed there, and maybe there's a casino nearby, and he I don't know, I have no idea. Later, some years later, after I was pastoring, I wrote him a letter of thanks. But at the time, I hope I expressed my gratitude. But see, the lines are falling to me in pleasant places, and one by one, I got saved, and God put people in my path that were godly people to lead me, and God's just been so good to me. And when we started our church, God brought people into our world, and of course there's been battles, and of course there's been opposition. We fight the good fight, the Bible talks about. We're to war a good warfare. We wrestle not against principality. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. We're at war. And we are fighting against spiritual wickedness in high places. So yes, there are enemies. And Paul said, a great and effectual door is open to me, but I have many adversaries. You try going on for God, and you will get attacked. Any old way the devil can get his foot in the door, he's going to fight you. And it could be health, money, kids, marriage. It could be job. It could be any number of things. But guarantee you this, the battle's on. But the lines are falling to me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. And I think as we navigate the difficulties, if we'd remember how very good God has been to us. And if you're saved today, you can rejoice in how good God has been. If you have saved loved ones who are in heaven waiting for you, you can rejoice in how good God's been to you. The very idea that we could have our name in the book of life, that we could have Jesus preparing a place for us, that we could have his promise, he's coming again for us. Look, not only have the lines fallen in pleasant places past tense, the lines are laid out future tense good. And I want to encourage you, we are in a difficult day in our country, and there are trials, and so my dearest friends are facing some battles. But I do know this, God's good, and God is faithful. And he says there in verse 6, the lines are fallen to me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. I'll bless the Lord who hath given me counsel. And he talks about praise. In verse 9, therefore my heart is glad. And in verse 11, thou wilt show me the path of life. You'll show me the right path to take. In thy presence is fullness of joy. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. And every now and then you see about some 50-year-old or 40-year-old famous actor or musician or whoever, athlete, and they died prematurely. And oh, how sad. Isn't it great to live for God? Because when my pastor, 2 weeks ago, well, maybe 3 weeks ago now, when he breathed his last breath, his very next breath was in the presence of God. And it's all good. And there's some loss here. He's 95 when he went to heaven. And I want to encourage you, live for God. Live for God and count your blessings, the things that God did to lead you on the path. And there are some awkward things. I remember when I was little, I got a shotgun as a gift, and I was practicing raising that thing up, and the only accident I can remember ever having with a firearm in my whole life, and I've had guns as long as I can remember, is that shotgun. I wasn't paying attention. I brought that thing up, and I was just in the house just practicing, and I hit my tooth and snapped my front tooth right off. And I think I was first grade. And oh man, my poor parents, the things kids put their parents through. And hopefully when we get older, we start paying them back a little bit. But there's some awkward and some difficult. I went for a lot of years with a silver cap, and one thing after another. And God walks us through those awkward days. He is faithful and good and just. Let's live for Him, honor Him, pray for the weekend, and of course pray for our country and for God's blessing. With 9/11, I should have dedicated the whole morning here, but just close with this. 20 years ago, the young people in high school weren't even alive when those Twin Towers were hit. And I hope you'll take time to pray for our country. How greatly we need God's blessing. And have a great day.